The purpose of the patience test. How many times have you felt impatient? Maybe you prayed for something, waiting for an immediate answer from God, but the response seemed to take forever. Or perhaps you found yourself in a situation where frustration took over, and that small delay, that everyday difficulty, felt like an endless test? We all go through these moments, and if you're reading this now, it's probably because you feel this way sometimes too. The truth is, often, difficulties and delays are not a sign that God has forgotten us or that we aren't being heard. In reality, they can be quite the opposite, a sign that God is working in our hearts, testing our patience to teach us something much deeper. The patience test, at its core, is a divine tool to shape us, to make us more like Christ, stronger, and more prepared for the challenges life brings. Let's be honest, waiting isn't easy. When we're anxious for something, our patience gets tested to the limit. Remember Abraham, who waited over 25 years for God's promise. Genesis 17 verse 17. He received the promise, but patience is what prepared him to experience its full fruition. Now, imagine this in your own life. What would be needed for you to trust God fully, even when the answer seems delayed or different from what you expected? Maybe you're asking, why would God do this to me? Why the silence? Why the wait? Well, here's where the purpose of it all comes in. The patience test isn't punishment, but a chance to grow. God doesn't just want you to get where He has prepared for you. He wants you to be prepared to become who He has called you to be. And sometimes, it's in the waiting, the delay, and the patience that we develop the faith that truly needs to be grounded and strengthened. So, what do we do when we feel impatient? The solution is simple: trust. As the Bible says, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength." Isaiah 40 verse 31. Waiting isn't just a pause, but a period of strengthening, aligning with God's will. It's hard, I know. But if you can look at patience not as frustration but as an invitation to grow, you'll see that the patience test is actually one of the greatest blessings God can offer us. So, the next time you feel your patience being tested, remember, it's just another step towards the bigger plan God has for you. Now, tell me, have you ever had moments when you felt impatient and, in the end, realized that time of waiting was crucial for something greater? Sign 1. Delay in answered prayers. Have you ever prayed for something with all your faith, but the answer didn't come immediately? Anxiety hits, your heart tightens, and the constant thought is, did God hear me? Why is He taking so long? This kind of situation can be one of the most challenging tests of patience. After all, when we ask God for something, we expect Him to answer quickly, right? But the delay in answers can be more than just a wait. It can actually be an opportunity to grow in faith and trust. Let's look at the Bible. Have you ever thought about what happened to the prophet Daniel? He prayed fervently for 21 days, but the answer didn't come immediately. In fact, God had already sent an answer, but the angel bringing the message was delayed by spiritual forces that tried to stop his mission. Daniel 10 verses 12 to 14. Daniel didn't know that. All he knew was that he was praying, and the answer seemed delayed. Even so, he persisted. This example is a powerful reminder that God's silence doesn't always mean He's not working. Sometimes, God allows us to wait because He knows that this waiting time will be transformative. The delay is not a sign of God's absence but of His preparation for something bigger, or that we need to be more prepared to receive what we asked for. Imagine Daniel's frustration while praying, seeing nothing happen, and wondering if he would ever be answered. But Daniel persisted. He kept his trust and didn't give up. That's the invitation God gives us, to trust His plan even when we don't understand what's happening behind the scenes. It's in this moment of waiting that we are challenged to grow spiritually. Active waiting teaches us patience, perseverance, and the strength to trust that, in due time, God will answer, and many times, the answer will be even better than we imagined. The Bible reminds us that, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways." Isaiah 55 verse 8. God knows what is best for us, and as hard as it may be, we must trust that He is in control. So, the next time you find yourself waiting for an answer from God, remember, the delay may be a vital part of the process. He's not silent. He's working, perhaps in ways you can't yet see. And when the answer finally comes, you will be stronger, more mature, and more prepared to receive it. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt God was taking too long to answer your prayer? How was that experience for you? Sign 2. Everyday frustrations. Let's be honest, everyday life isn't always easy. Sometimes, it's the little daily setbacks that seem to test us more than any big challenge. The traffic that doesn't move, the boss who asks more than you can deliver, or even that coworker who just doesn't understand your routine. These small moments of frustration, no matter how insignificant they may seem, are great opportunities for growth, especially when it comes to patience. In the Bible, in James 1 verses 2-4, we find an invitation to transform these situations. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Here, James teaches us that the patience we develop in the small daily frustrations is a practice to make us stronger spiritually. Who hasn't felt impatient when things don't go as planned? It can be frustrating when plans don't work out, but it's precisely in those moments that patience is most needed. These patience tests, often disguised as daily frustrations, are like spiritual workouts. They teach us to be calmer, more resilient, and above all, to trust that God is in control of all situations. Imagine this scenario: you're rushing to an important appointment, but traffic is at a standstill, the traffic light won't turn green, and every passing minute makes you more stressed. At this moment, you have two choices: react with anger or use patience as an opportunity to grow. What the Bible teaches us is that these situations are chances to develop perseverance, which is the foundation for a stronger faith. Each time you choose to stay calm, even when everything seems out of control, you're allowing God to work in your heart. How can you apply this in your daily life? When things don't go as planned, instead of giving in to frustration, take a deep breath and reflect. What can I learn here? How can I respond in a way that honors God? This may seem simple, but over time, these small adjustments in attitude make a huge difference in your spiritual growth. Patience, like any virtue, needs to be cultivated. And it's in the daily routine, in the small moments of frustration, that God gives us the chance to practice it. So, the next time an unexpected situation arises, instead of panicking, remember, it's the perfect time to develop patience and trust that God is in control of every detail of your life. Have you ever had a day when, despite all the frustrations, you were able to keep calm and respond differently? How did that make you feel? Sign 3. The need to wait for something greater. Who hasn't wished for something to happen faster? Whether it's a dream, a project, or even an answer from God. Impatience often arises because, in our hearts, we think we know what's best for us, and waiting can feel like an obstacle. But in reality, the waiting time is one of the greatest tests of patience and trust in God. In the Bible, we see this clearly in the story of Abraham and Sarah. God promised Abraham that he would be the father of many nations, but this dream didn't come to pass until years later, when Sarah, his wife, was already old. Abraham had to wait for something that seemed impossible, Genesis 17 verse 17. During this wait, he faced doubts, frustrations, and, at times, even tried to rush God's plan with his own actions, but what God wanted was for him to wait for the right time to receive the promise. This process of waiting for something greater goes far beyond a simple test of patience. It serves to prepare us for what God has in store for us. Often, we focus so much on what we want now that we don't realize how much more magnificent God's plan for the future is than what we imagined. The problem with waiting is not in God, but in us. Our lack of trust and our tendency to want to control everything can turn waiting into a burden, when in fact, it's an opportunity for growth. God isn't just asking us to wait, He is teaching us to trust in His perfect timing. When we look at the story of Abraham, we understand that what God was really doing wasn't just fulfilling a promise, but preparing Abraham to be the father of a great nation. He needed to mature, to understand that his life was connected to God's eternal plan. The patience that develops while we wait for something greater teaches us humility and trust. It can be hard to accept that God's timing isn't our timing, but it's in that gap that we are shaped. While we wait, God works in our hearts, teaching us to wait without anxiety, to trust without seeing, and to love without rushing. How can you apply this in your own path? The next time you find yourself waiting for something important, remember that the wait is an opportunity to trust God. Instead of seeing the waiting time as an obstacle, see it as a gift that God gives you to grow, mature, and be ready for what He has prepared for you. Have you ever felt frustrated by waiting but later realized that God was working on something greater for you? How did this experience change your perspective on patience and trust in God? Sign for the temptation to take control of the situation. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where nothing seemed to be going the way you expected, and the temptation to take control of the situation was almost irresistible? That feeling that God was taking too long to act, and you needed to do something, anything, to change the course of things. It's not uncommon to feel that if we don't do anything, things will never get resolved. Impatience sets in, and the desire to control the situation seems like the only way out. In the Bible, this temptation to take control of our own lives is clearly illustrated in the story of Abraham and Sarah. God had promised Abraham that he would be the father of a great nation, but the promise was slow to come to pass. When time passed and Sarah couldn't conceive, they both grew impatient. Sarah then suggested that Abraham sleep with her servant Hagar to have a child, thinking that by doing this, they could help God fulfill his promise. Genesis 16. Abraham, choosing to follow this suggestion, ended up creating a huge family conflict, something that never would have happened had he waited for God's timing. This is the big problem with the temptation to take control of the situation. By trying to control what is out of our reach, we often create more problems. Instead of allowing God to have control, we try to fill the waiting void with impulsive decisions. Patience, in this case, becomes the greatest exercise in trust. God asks us to wait and trust, but our anxiety can lead us to act out of fear and impatience. The Bible, in Psalm 37 verse 7, advises us, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him." This verse reminds us that we should not take matters into our own hands because God is already working, even when we don't see it. He is orchestrating every detail, and many times, the delay is because he is preparing something better for us than we could have imagined. In our lives, this temptation appears in many forms. A desire to force things in a relationship, to rush a process at work, or to make impulsive decisions in finance or in our spiritual journey. However, when we give in to the temptation to control everything, we end up compromising God's perfect plan for our lives. When you feel the temptation to make things happen, pause for a moment and reflect. Am I trying to control something only God can do? Instead of acting on your own, take a deep breath, pray, and trust that, in his perfect timing, God will act. Have you ever been in a situation where, by trying to take control, things got out of hand? How did God use that moment to teach you to wait and trust his plan? Sign 5. Difficult people in your life. Who hasn't had to deal with difficult people? Those who seem to test our patience with every word, every action, every gesture. It's these interactions that often challenge us in ways that external situations cannot. However, the truth we often forget is that difficult people can be one of the greatest tests of patience and spiritual growth that God uses in our lives. The Bible speaks a lot about the importance of how we treat others. One of the most powerful verses is found in Colossians 3 verse 13. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. The key word here is bear with. This doesn't simply mean tolerate, but to allow our patience to be worked on, especially when the behavior of others affects us. Take, for example, the story of Joseph in the Old Testament. Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and lived for years in difficult circumstances. But instead of giving in to anger and resentment, he used those moments to grow in wisdom and patience. When he had the chance to take revenge, Joseph chose to forgive, saying, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." Genesis 50 verse 20. What seemed like a patience test with his brothers became an opportunity for him to demonstrate faith and forgiveness, turning pain into something powerful. Difficult people in our lives challenge us in the same way. When someone irritates or hurts us, the temptation is to retaliate, respond with anger, or try to change the person to fit our expectations. But God calls us to do things differently. He calls us to be patient, to look beyond behavior, and to seek forgiveness and understanding, just as he did for us. These situations are divine opportunities to become more like Christ. Remember, he was constantly challenged by people who rejected him, mocked him, and even condemned him to death. But he chose to forgive and love. If he could do it, so can we. This is the true exercise of patience. When we can handle others with love, even when they don't deserve it, we reflect God's character in our lives. So, the next time you find yourself dealing with someone who tests your patience, remember that this could be an opportunity for growth. Ask yourself, how can I respond in a way that honors God and shows patience? Instead of reacting impulsively, practice forgiveness, seek peace, and trust that God will use this situation to shape you. Have you ever faced a challenge with a difficult person and managed to act with patience and forgiveness? How did that impact your life and faith? The purpose of patience in God's plan. Have you ever stopped to think about why God insists so much on teaching us patience? Sometimes, life's difficulties feel like an endless test, and the process of waiting can leave us exhausted and frustrated. However, it's in these very moments that God is shaping our faith in a profound and lasting way. Patience isn't just a virtue we cultivate, it's a key God uses to prepare us for His greater purpose in our lives. In the Bible, we learn that patience isn't just about waiting, it's about how we wait. In Romans 5 verses 3-4, the Apostle Paul teaches us that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. The patience God teaches us is not a passive act of simply enduring difficulties, but an active attitude of trust. Throughout the waiting, He transforms us, matures us, and prepares us for the great work He has for us. Often we think God is just testing us, but the purpose is much deeper. Patience is what allows us to see beyond temporary circumstances and trust that God is working, even when the answers aren't immediate. When God calls us to wait, He's preparing us for something much bigger. Waiting is the time when He equips us to handle what's to come, maturing us spiritually, emotionally, and even physically. Take, for example, the story of David. Before he became king, David had to go through years of persecution, challenges, and suffering. He could have seized the throne for himself, but God was preparing him to rule with wisdom and justice. His patience in the midst of adversity caused him to grow in trust, humility, and faith. David learned to depend on God in every situation, and for that reason, he was able to lead with a heart after God's own. God uses the waiting time to teach us to trust in His plan, to trust in His rhythm, and, most importantly, to trust in His goodness. The purpose of patience isn't to make us wait in vain, but to equip us for what He has for us. Many times, He doesn't give us the answer when we expect it because we're not yet ready to receive it. He needs to prepare us for what's to come, so we can experience the fullness of His blessings. And how can you apply this in your daily life? When waiting gets tough, remember that God is working even when you can't see it. It's not about accepting the wait, but using this time to grow in faith and trust. Instead of focusing on what you're waiting for, focus on what God is doing in you during the wait. God's purpose is always greater than what we can see. So, patience isn't just about waiting, it's about fully trusting that He is in control. Are you ready to wait and trust what He is doing in your life?